Hey YouTube, welcome to Movie Enthusiasts. I'm Richard. I'll be your movie enthusiast to help you through our guide today. This is only my second video, so I am getting around to my main agenda eventually. But right now, I kind of just wanted to talk about one of my favorite set of movies right now, which is the DCEU. Um, lots of people think DCEU. They don't even know what it means. Essentially, that means this DC Extended Universe Cinematic Universe. It's essentially just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, except with our DC heroes. Um, I will be talking about today from about a little bit about each and every single movie, starting from Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, and Justice League. Justice League I will not be talking about very much. For those of you who have not seen one or all of those movies, um, there will be spoilers. I'm just telling you now. I'm going to talk about them in the order they came out. So first Man of Steel, then Batman vs Superman, then Suicide Squad, then Wonder Woman, and then finally Justice League. So if you wanted to learn a little bit about the first four, but not Justice League because you haven't seen it yet, well, you can watch until that point. I'll say, okay, here we're going. For those of you who want to leave, go ahead. Okay. But okay. So DCEU. Let's start off with Man of Steel. Man of Steel came out in 2012. I do believe this is the beginning of the DCEU. Henry Cavill is the star actor in that. He is playing our Superman, and this is a kind of a Superman origin story. Um, and it's a little bit darker than we're used to. Most of us, when we think about Superman origin story, we think about, oh, hey, he's from Krypton, and his dad sees Krypton about to explode, so he builds a ship just small enough for his newborn son, sends him off to Earth, and he gets found by the Kents, these farmers in Kansas, who raise him up and teach him good old American values. And then eventually he becomes Superman. Pretty much the really only origin story we have, besides the origin story we find in the series Smallville. Um, Man of Steel kind of gives us a glimpse of Superman before he becomes Superman. We get a look at Kal-El, Clark Kent, not Superman really, until the very, very end. And there's a lot of mixed reviews about this movie. Personally, is one of my favorites. It is a fantastic movie, in my opinion. Um, and you get this glimpse of Kal-El, Clark Kent, uh, just before just before he becomes Superman, before he reveals himself to the entire world, and he doesn't know who he is, and he doesn't know what to do with his life. Um, Now the movie kind of starts off with just with his father, not Zor. It is Zor-El, isn't it? I don't know. It's Russell Crowe's character. Can't remember his actual dad's name. I think it's Zor-El, but um, and him sending him off and getting him here to Earth, and that story I kind of just explained in the beginning, obviously with its little twists and turns, but nice story to begin with. He gets to Earth, and then it skips forward, 20, 30 years. Not exactly sure how old Clark Kent is at this point. Kal-El is. Um, and you find Lois Lane, played by Amy Adams, going about trying to find this story about this man who just mysterious. He saves people from an oil rig that's blowing up, and all these things. And at the same time, you're seeing Superman try to find himself and try to find a clue about himself. And you get flashbacks throughout the movie of it back to his infancy, of him discovering his powers, like he's in class and all of a sudden he's getting his X-ray vision and stuff. and his heat vision, and you just see how traumatizing it is for him. And you see other points where he saved a school bus with all of his classmates from drowning. And you see his concern, his father's concern, Jonathan Kent's concern about people rejecting him. Um, and then you finally see Superman uh, become Superman. And part of the conflict of this story is Superman becoming Superman and deciding who he is, if he's a hope for people, if he's going to help people, or if he's going to follow his Earth Father's wish to let people guide and govern themselves. And the big story comes out where Zod, General Zod, a convicted felon, that used to be the general of all of Krypton's armies, who was sent to the Phantom Zone just before the destruction of Krypton. And he's trying to get this thing that Superman's father had stolen and placed inside of Superman. Finds him on Earth and is trying to, well, get Superman to join him and give him what his father had taken. And eventually comes down to Zod really wants to turn Earth into uh, New Krypton. And Superman doesn't like that, so they eventually get in a fight, and Superman wins. And that's just like the more or less the story about it. Now, this movie is fantastic, and there are some very controversial parts of this movie that many people don't quite like, and some things that I personally enjoyed. One of my favorite things about Superman is his love story with Lois Lane. But something that's always irked me about that story is that Lois Lane is the best best journalist, who is so good at unearthing all of these wonderful stories. And she can't figure out that this homeboy with glasses, when he takes them off, he's Superman. But when he has glasses on, he's got from Kansas. It has never floated my boat, and I just love how in this movie immediately they throw that out the boat. I'm like, okay, um, this is the best journalist who uncovers all these things all the time, and she can't figure out Superman. Well, okay, you know what? She's gonna figure out Superman before he even knows he's Superman. So she finds him. She's gonna find him, and she finds out his secret immediately, and I love that. Um, one of the big downsides, one of the big problems with this movie, though, is its fight scenes. Now, for most of you, think, "Oh, hey, you're crazy. There's only two fight scenes. There's two fight scenes in that one fight. No, not even one, two. There's one continuous fight scene from about halfway through the movie to the very end." And that's wrong. There's actually only about 17 minutes of fight scene, and there are several fight scenes. But I agree with you. It does feel like one continuous fight scene, and that's the problem. Is it feels like one continuous fight scene, and it feels too long. And that's probably one of the biggest problems the DCEU has had for most of its time, is it's grouping all of its fight scenes together and not spreading them out, and it makes the movie feel too long. And you kind of lose like the hype after the fight scenes. I kind of felt like, okay, it's dragging on a little bit too much when finally Superman destroys the machine that's getting to that's turning Earth into the new Krypton, that the transformator thing. I can't remember what it's called, but that's one of the biggest problems with the movie. Now, another problem that most people point out in this movie is Superman kills Zod. Superman does not kill. Superman won't ever kill. And well, that is a very good point. In the comics, Superman tries not to kill, and he says, "I do not kill." While in the comics, he actually does kill every once in a while, but under extreme circumstances. And I actually like the aspect that he kills Zod, not because, hey, um, Zod, the Superman, he needs to be killing everyone willy nilly. No, that's not what I'm thinking. Superman needs a reason not to kill, and you see this power struggle. Superman is this man who has grown up on an Earth, who has never fought in his life. He is not trained to fight, and he's put up against these people who not only were trained to fight, they were bred to fight. If you don't remember, Krypton, every single person was not born naturally except for Superman himself. Everyone was born with a specific purpose in mind. Zor-El was born to be a scientist. Zod was born to be the general. These people were born to be their positions. So these guys are soldiers. And not just that, General Zod is a expert tacticianist. He knows exactly how to do things, and he knows how to do it. The only upper hand that Superman has on Zod in this moment is Superman knows his own powers. He's used them for many years, and he's used to the atmosphere. Zod is being introduced to all this. He doesn't know all of his powers. He's catching on to it fairly quick, but he doesn't know it. That's his only advantage. And it comes down to this point where Superman has Zod in a headlock. And because Superman now has control of his entire strength, he has Zod in a spot where he can stop him from doing destroying this entire world that Superman absolutely comes to love. And then Zod gives him an ultimatum. Zod knows that Superman has been protecting these innocent people, and he sees a bunch of them right there, a group of family maybe, right there in his path of line sight, and he uses heat vision, and he's bringing his eyes just so he can kill these people. Superman is yelling, "Stop! Don't do it! Don't do it!" And Superman is placed with this one choice: kill him, or let him go, or watch these people die. Those are his three choices right there. And he chooses the one that is probably the hardest for him. And he kills Zod, and you just see the absolute pain in his eyes. And I absolutely commend Henry Cavill for this because he portrayed it so great. And he shows everyone that he's willing to protect. But in that moment, you can also see in his eyes that he's not willing to ever kill again. It'll only be a last choice moment. So I'm going to say, yeah, you can say, go ahead, Superman shouldn't kill. I'm saying Superman's not going to kill anymore, most likely. And if he does, it's going to be, there's no other choice. And Superman, I don't think that was a bad choice for Zack Snyder and all the directors. Another little thing that I feel like the DCEU is probably not the strength in is CGI. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I get to, as I'm going into Batman versus Superman. Man of Steel didn't have it that bad. It's not as noticeable in Man of Steel, but when you get to Batman versus Superman and Wonder Woman, those and Justice League, it is definitely a lot more noticeable. But we'll talk about that a little bit later with those three movies. Um, but overall, I think Man of Steel is one of my favorite movies. Um, Definitely a good movie. Granted, if you're wanting to laugh, not the movie to watch. But Man of Steel is a great movie. Now let's get into Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman is a very controversial film. It is one of your few films where you get two of the very most iconic superheroes. I mean, I seriously believe when people think superheroes, first three names that come to their mind: Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. And Batman and Superman are two of the three oldest superheroes in comics. Superman came out in 1938, his first comic issue. The next superhero come out was Namor, which is in the Marvel universe. He's essentially the Marvel version of Aquaman, but again, he came first. He came out in the early 1939, and later that same year, 1939, Batman comes out in Detective Comics. Which, for those of you who don't know, DC is just the abbreviation for Detective Comics, which was they decided to take the name of their most popular comic because Superman was born in Action Comics, Batman in Detective Comics, and that's where they get these names. Sorry, I gotta move myself. Just realized my computer's about to die. So, now this is the first film where they get Batman versus Superman. Batman and Superman, two of the most iconic superheroes in all comicdom together. And Batman versus Superman, essentially the story is, first off, it starts off with a cutscene back to Man of Steel, not Man versus Steel, Man of Steel. And you see the last battle scene of Man of Steel from the point of view of Bruce Wayne, of Batman, and who was played by Ben Affleck. I personally think this is one of the best versions of Batman ever. So you got Ben Affleck. I mean, not Ben Affleck, Bruce Wayne. He's getting into Metropolis just as Superman is taking out taking out the enemy Kryptonians, and he is keeping them strong. The reason why he's there is to get all of his employees in his Metropolis wing out and safe. And you can definitely see he is concerned for his people, the people who work for him. And so he's trying to get them all out, but he's seeing this battle in the point of view of he's seeing this battle, and it's absolutely scary to see all this power and destruction coming from this one being. And they eventually crash. Superman and Zod eventually crash through into a building near Wayne Enterprise, and Zod's first use of heat vision happens to take out Wayne Enterprises, and it destroys the building. And in this section, it's setting up little sections for future parts of the movie. One of the employees for Batman versus Superman, I do not remember the character's name, but he is trapped underneath a support bar for the building, and it's completely destroyed his legs. Eventually, he's going to have to get it amputated. Now it's going to fast forward. Well, actually, the movie technically actually begins with Batman's origin story, the typical his parents dying, him falling into a cave, and it's only like 2 minutes long. It's one of my favorite versions of the origin story because we all know it so well. They didn't have to go through it really cool, do a long, extended. Here's how Batman became Batman. We all know it so well. So they skipped most of it. But they fast forward 18 months after the battle in Metropolis, and you find Lois Lane being her usual reporter self, and she's trying to get a story from these military people in Africa, I believe it is. And Uh, the FBI is trying to get information on these people, and so they send a reporter named Jimmy Olsen. Sad day, Jimmy Olsen. Um, who in the comics is actually a good friend of Superman's and Lois Lane's. But right now, but in the movies, he is an agent for the FBI, and he's taking pictures. And she is interviewing uh, the leader of this military group. These can't remember what the word is. They're hired guns, mercenaries. And one of them goes over and talks. Goes over and grabs Jimmy Olsen's camera, finds a chip, a tracking chip in it, and for that reason they kill Jimmy Olsen off. Oh, sad day, bad news for Jimmy Olsen. But so, and then later on, and then Superman comes and saves him, saves Lois Lane, and then you get into this story of Lois Lane trying to finding out that there were some unknown bullets at this military installation, and it was brand new. She was trying to figure out what happened and where these bullets came from. And Superman, on the other hand, gets assigned to go to Gotham and watch the Metropolis Gotham football game. And well, he decides that's not what his cup of tea, and he starts hearing about the Batman, and so he starts discovering, trying to figure out the Batman and who he is. And Batman's over in Gotham, terrorizing Gotham and starting to brand people with a bat iron and putting his iron, his brand on these criminals that he's capturing. And he's trying to find information about something called the White Portuguese. Um, and so you got these three stories going on, and then you also have Lex Luthor in there as well. And eventually you find out that he is in the middle of all three of these. All the criminals that um, Batman is branding. He's having killed in the Metropolis prisons. Superman's finding out that Batman is terrorizing. He's like, I don't want this happening. This guy's crazy. I'm gonna stop him. Lois Lane's trying to figure out what's going on, and eventually Batman finds out that Lex Luthor is actually has all the information on the White Portuguese, and eventually you find out the White Portuguese is actually a ship importing kryptonite, and that Batman wants this kryptonite so he can take on Superman and get rid of him and absolutely destroy him. So that because he feels absolutely threatened by Superman and what he did to Metropolis that day. And so you have all these stories going on, and you're eventually seeing this other guy that had his legs cut off. At the beginning of the movie, he's defacing Superman, and eventually, because of him, Lex Luthor is able to destroy a Senate hearing and kill a ton of senators and people. That was over Superman, and you start seeing that people are questioning if they actually need a Superman. And so you have all these tons of little stories um, going through in this movie, and um, eventually, uh, there comes down to a point where Lex Luthor captures Superman's mom and Lois Lane, and gives Superman an ultimatum that he either kills Batman or Lex Luthor is going to kill Superman's mom. And so Superman goes and tries to take on try to not take on Batman, but to enlist Batman's help to save his mom. But Batman's not wanting to listen, so they start a fight and they kick each other's trash. And Batman's about to kill Superman, and Again, controversial topic. Martha. Now I'm gonna pause right here on this part of the story. Actually, I'll wait till a little bit later. I'm gonna explain why I think Martha was not a dumb plot point that a lot of you guys are saying. Um, so then Batman finds out Superman's not a bad guy and goes and helps Superman save his mom, while Superman goes and takes on this creation that Lex Luthor is creating that is a monster in the crashed spaceship in Metropolis. And we get Doomsday. And then big old fight ensues. Wonder Woman comes and helps. And eventually, Superman uses a kryptonite spear to kill Doomsday. And then they've arrested Lex Luthor and put him in jail. Okay, so there's your story for you. Now, I'm going to admit, there are two versions of this movie. There's the theatrical version, which everyone saw in theaters, and then there's the ultimate version. Theatrical version was not everything I just explained. I explained a few things that are found in the ultimate version, which is an extended version. And the theatrical version has many plot holes. And this is due to a length restriction that Zack Snyder has on the movie, and his inability to find anything unimportant in the movie, which, to be honest, there is very little that is unimportant in the movie. It is a movie that you have to pay attention to every little detail if you want to actually understand it. So there are plot holes, and that's most of the reason why people say this is a horrible movie. But if you go and watch the Ultimate Edition, you get a new look. You finally find out that that photographer is actually Jimmy Olsen. He actually introduces himself as Jimmy Olsen. You see Superman actually going about, actually finding out about Superman, about Batman, and why he all of a sudden has this vendetta against Batman. And then you go over to, and then you get Lex Luthor and see how he's actually manipulating people. He's getting a hold of these checks that Batman is sending to this crippled guy, and saying, "Hey, open your eyes. You let your family die," and all this stuff. And he's getting Batman all worked up, and he's helping fuel the hate against Superman, and at the same time, giving Superman clues to what's going on. He also is the one who gave Batman the information about the kryptonite because he knew he wanted Batman to use the kryptonite to kill Superman. That's the whole point of the movie, is just to kill Superman. And it's actually quite a lot. There's a lot better. 3 hours long, though. Very worth the wait. Now, strength and weaknesses of this movie. Again, just like Man of Steel, all the fight scenes are at the end. And it's too long. Luckily, this is the last movie where they do this mistake in the DCEU. That's the only mistake in this movie. One of the biggest mistakes in this movie. Another big mistake that I find in this movie is the use of CGI. For some reason, the DCEU does not know how to use CGI. Doomsday, complete CGI monster, ends up looking like one of those trolls from Lord of the Rings, but the cheap knocked off version, not the completely done. He's not. It doesn't. You can tell he's CGI, and a lot of this fight, like all these special effects with Superman and with Batman, it's just obviously CGI. And for some reason, they rely so much on CGI. You can see this in Wonder Woman with all their fight scenes and the crazy acrobatics that they're doing with their fighting styles, and the Amazons and Justice League as well. There's just so much reliance on CGI, and it's a bad choice. I know a little bit of enhancement on CGI does go a long way. It can help a lot, but we're digitally creating things completely out of CGI is a wrong move, in my opinion. It detracts from the movie's greatness. Now you guys saying, okay, get to the Martha bit. We want to hear your issue on that, and I'm going to say this. People say that's stupid because, like, hey, We have the same mom. What a quinkadink. Um, and so I'm gonna be friends with you because we have the same mom. We're gonna be best old buddies. That's actually not the reasoning why Zack Snyder had that there. That's not as lame an excuse as you think. Let's take a look at this at not Superman's point of view, but Batman's point of view. Superman is there trying to save his mom, and we don't know why he says Martha, but he does say Martha instead of save my mom. But Batman is this very, very paranoid person. He does not want anyone to know who he is. In the comics, they portray him as the most paranoid person ever. Um, and he goes to such great lengths to keep his identity secret. And Batman, upon hearing the name of his mom, no, this again is all my interpretation. But it's upon hearing the name of his mom, he's like, okay, this guy knows the name of my mom, and he knows she's dead. And what does it mean? Like save Martha? What the heck is going on? And so he's like, okay, what? Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name? And in this moment, he's probably going back and he's thinking through the entire fight scene. Why is he going through this? And he probably realizes that for some reason that Superman is actually trying to talk to him at the beginning of the fight. And of course, Superman can't say a word because Batman has his foot over his throat. And he's like, okay, he's just gonna save Martha, save Martha. And eventually Lois Lane comes and says, that's his mom's name. And Batman's like, okay. He wasn't here to play games with me. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to get me to help him save his mom. I feel like such a fool. And you can kind of see that in Ben Affleck's face in this moment. Um, so I think that was actually not something bad that most people put it out to be. Though yes, it can be quite funny. I do kind of quite enjoy some of the jokes they make about Martha. But that's not the actual reasoning. My actual thought process behind the Martha. One of my favorite things about this movie, though, is their choice of Batman. Many people say, "Hey, Batflick, horrible. Ben Affleck should not be Batman." I don't agree. Um, I I'm gonna talk about the Batmans that I from Tim Conroy, who does Batman in the animated series. Probably the best Batman ever because he's just a voice. He doesn't have to portray actual his mannerisms, but he can portrays his voice very well. Then we got oh darn, I just forgot his name. Oh my word, I forgot his name. Well, we'll start from the beginning. We got Ben Affleck. We got Christian Bale. We have George Clooney, Val Kilmer, and what is his name? Batman, the motion picture. Oh, wow. They don't have enough people. Michael Keaton. All right, there's his name. Michael Keaton. All right, so we got these people playing Batman. Michael Keaton played Batman in the Batman the Motion Picture from 1989 and Batman Returns. In this Batman, so first off, who is Batman? What makes Batman Batman? Batman is in the comics known as the world's greatest detective, the world's greatest martial artist, and he strikes fear into people. And I feel like with most versions of Batman, you get one or the other. You don't get the greatest detective. You either get the greatest martial artist or you get the greatest detective. And So you got Batman the Motion Picture. I'm not saying it's a horrible movie. I actually quite enjoy that movie. But the problem with their Batman in there is he's not a very good fighter. And at that point, I can probably say that's probably because of the costume. The costume was probably just pure on rubber, and he couldn't really move. You can kind of see he's kind of robotic body. He can't move his head. But you kind of see his detective skills, and that's for Batman and Batman Returns. This is Michael Keaton's Batman. Um, George Clooney, that wasn't Batman. That was the Joker dressed up as the Batman. It was not no detective skills whatsoever, no fighting. That was just a pure PR. We're going to market Visa credit cards and Coca-Cola. That was the issue there. Follow with Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer really didn't have much of a chance. They kind of see the detective in this again, but again, you can't see the martial artist because the outfit. So, but Val Kilmer, his movies mostly forgotten because of Batman and Robin with George Clooney, which was horrible, in my opinion. And then you get Christian Bale. Now, most people say, "Hey, Christian Bale is much better than Ben Affleck." I disagree. Um, Christian Bale was not a detective whatsoever. Christopher Nolan brought Christian Bale and brought him into the full-on martial artist that we know on, and they do a very good job with his fight scenes and that, but not so much with his detective work. You can kind of see a little bit of the detective work in The Dark Knight, but Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises, you don't see it at all, and that's where I think they kind of messed up Batman in those series. Don't get me wrong, love the Dark Knight trilogy. It's one of the best movies, the best trilogies ever. But their Batman wasn't the best. Now you get to Batman versus Superman and the Justice League. Batman is actually a detective and he's actually a martial artist. You see him going about trying to find out what the White Portuguese is, get the kryptonite. And another thing about Batman is he builds everything. Just like Iron Man, he builds everything he uses. Sometimes he's only designs it and has Lucius Fox, who you see in the Dark Knight trilogy, played by Morgan Freeman, build it, but he's the one who designs everything. And then you see that in this version right here. In Ben Affleck's version of Batman, there's a little bit where he's building the weapons to fight Superman. In Justice League, he builds the Walker. But you can see him building, and you see him being a detective, finding the White Portuguese and all that. And then you see his fight scene. I mean, his fight scene against Batman, pretty cool. He's actually taking on the Man of Steel. Well, did I say Batman? I meant Superman. The Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman. He's actually pretty cool. But then the fight right after that, where he's taking on all these armed thugs, awesome. One of my favorite fight scenes ever. That's why I think Ben Affleck's one of the best Batman. Live action Batman. We forget about Adam West. I don't really consider him Batman because there was a different era, different type of Batman back then. But nowadays, Ben Affleck's Batman is the most accurate Batman I've seen live action. Obviously, all the animated Batmans are a lot better because they don't have to deal with actual acting. They just have to do with animating, which is a lot easier than getting one man who can't actually do karate do something even better than karate. But so Batman vs Superman, if you watch the Ultimate Edition, one of my favorite movies ever. Great movie. Next movie is Suicide Squad. Okay, initial premise: Suicide Squad. The U.S. government, after the death of Superman, decides that they need someone to take care of these situations where government can deny all plausibility. So they decide to take all these inmates who are big old supervillains and force them to do their bidding by placing bombs in their neck. Supervillains in this is Harley Quinn, played by Margot Robbie, Deadshot, played by Will Smith, and that's the end of the names I actually know the characters for, the actors for. But there's also the Crocodile. There's Katana. There's Captain Boomerang. And then there was that Indian guy that I don't remember his name. I don't even remember him saying his name in the movie. He's also in this group. And then you have the Enchantress, who ends up being the big bad in this movie. So essentially, the government loses control of Enchantress. Enchantress takes over, I think it's Chicago, and so they send the Suicide Squad in to go save Amanda Waller, who is the person in charge of this task force. And then they decide to grow a little bit of mentality and go save Chicago from the Enchantress and destroy her. Um, you get a little bit of the Joker in this movie. Essentially, the Joker is trying to save Harley Quinn. That's all really the Joker is in this movie. I think um, I'm going to address one of DC's biggest problems so far. It's their PR, their marketing. It is horrible. Their marketing is absolutely horrible. Um, with Batman versus Superman, they gave up most of the important information in the commercials. Uh, Suicide Squad, they focused so much on the Joker that they got everyone infuriated when he wasn't in it. Um, and I think that's DC's biggest problem right there is they let on too much. They let out too much of the information in their commercials. I mean, just showing a little bit here, a little bit there, without much of the story. Like you can show what's the beginning, what's spurring everything. You show that, but the big fight scene at the end, leave it alone. You can show a scene or two from that, but you can't just show them beating the crap out of people or stuff like that. And that's one of DCEU's biggest problems right there is their marketing. They're not very good at marketing their movies now. Now they don't have a good story, but they're not marketing. Now Suicide Squad, I actually do think has a really bad story. It's really hard to follow. Um, and again, CGI absolutely horrible in this movie. Um, so yeah, that's it's not my favorite movie. It's actually my least favorite of all the DC movies. I'd probably give it a awful rating. Um, but in this movie, they gave some interesting choices. I think Will Smith's Deadshot was absolutely fantastic. They couldn't have chose anyone better to be Deadshot. I loved it. Um, and I hope they continue showcasing Will Smith in the DCEU and his Deadshot. Harley Quinn was actually very entertaining. I liked her. Um, and again, I hope they continue. I hope these rumors that they're gonna do things with her is gonna continue. Um, the Joker, I thought was an interesting casting. I can't just tell you if I like it or not. I think Jared Leto's Joker was interesting to say the least. I'm not mad that he has all these tattoos. Um, I mean, I don't think anyone's ever been able to get the Joker completely correct. I think maybe Jared Leto is probably the closest. But in my opinion, the best Joker of them all, Mark Hamill's Joker in the animated series, absolutely nails it. I think one of the best things about Joker is his laugh. Um, Jack Nicholson did a good job as a Joker and back in the Batman the Motion Picture. Heath Ledger played a completely different Joker and did a very good job in his Joker in The Dark Knight. Um, but in Suicide Squad, Jared Leto's Joker, I can't tell you if he did a good job or not because they didn't showcase him enough. I think it's an interesting choice, and I think maybe if they showcase him a little further, we can make a decision about him. Suicide Squad, I'm not going to talk very much about because I didn't like that one very much, and it's awful. So we're going to skip that and go on to Wonder Woman. So, according to everyone, Wonder Woman, one of the best superhero movies ever. Um, and if I am not mistaken, it is the actual first um, superhero movie showcasing a woman as the main superhero movie showcasing a woman, woman superhero as the main character. We can't say Catwoman because Catwoman is an anti-hero, but I can't think of any other superhero movies where the main character is a woman. So Wonder Woman is actually one of the first superhero woman superhero movie. If I have that wrong, please tell me. I want to know if I do have that wrong. I will amend it later in other movies, other videos. So this is probably one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen. The story is Wonder Woman is born on the island of Themyscira, and the Amazons are preparing for the day when Hades comes back and is going to destroy the world, and they're there just to protect it. And all of a sudden, so this is an island full of just women, absolutely pure women. If you're not sure what the story of the Amazons, it's actually from Greek mythology, and it's just women trying to protect just a group of warrior women, a race of warrior women. And they're hidden from the world. And so during the World War One, Steve Trevor is a Air Force pilot, and he comes and he crash lands and ends up on Themyscira. And all of a sudden, the German soldiers behind him, not Nazis. Remember, Nazis are World War II. German soldiers came, were following him, and they ended up attacking Themyscira. The Amazons completely destroy all of them, losing a ton of people at the same time. And so they started questioning Steve Trevor about what's going on. They find out about the World War. And Wonder Woman hears about this and like, oh, this is Ares. Ares is Ares is getting ready to destroy and to take on the world, and he's the reason for this huge war. And so going on. Sorry, I need water. The Queen of Themyscira to let her go, to send people to go help. And her mom refuses. So Wonder Woman, being all very curious, takes Steve Trevor and goes and helps him to go destroy Ares. So you go on, and the movie goes on, and Steve Trevor goes, petitions in front of all these British people, the British Parliament, I believe, and they ignore him. So he grabs a few smugglers, and they go off to try to find Ares. Now, Steve Trevor is a spy, and he had found some information about this general who Wonder Woman gets in her mind and thinks he is Ares. And so she has the mind to go kill him. So she convinces Steve Trevor to take her to him. And as they're going along, obviously, Wonder Woman falls in love with Steve Trevor. They find this general. They take him on. And Wonder Woman finds out he's just a human. Well, first she kills him. And nothing happens. And they keep fighting. And she's like, why? Why are you still fighting? If I killed Ares, you're supposed to stop fighting. But they keep fighting. And then plot twist, one of these diplomats who had helped them actually get the money to go on this little mission, he was Ares. And I'm not exactly sure what the name of this actor is, but he's the guy who plays Lupin from Harry Potter. And so they take him on. She fights him and finds out. She also has a sword that she believes is the God Killer. It's the only weapon that can kill gods. So this sword breaks, and then she realizes that the God Killer is actually her, and she herself is a god. She was made from clay and given life by Zeus, and then sent to live among the Amazons. And so eventually she kills Ares. This movie, fantastic movie. It finally broke from the actual fighting fiasco that the DCEU had, and it separated the fighting scenes and gave a good enough lull between fight scenes that it didn't feel like one continuous fight scene. It was very good, very well written. A little bit of humor, which lightened the mood. It wasn't too much humor, but it was kind of like the Avengers level humor, where it was things that were understandable in the moment, like Wonder Woman uh, seeing Steve Trevor naked and asking about his watch, and he thinking she's asking about his penis and all that wonderful stuff. But no, it was quite funny, and it was just a little awkwardness between Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman that was actually really apparent when what actually made sense with the characters. Um, and it was quite good. Biggest problem with the movie, again, CGI, heavy reliance on it, and you can tell when there's CGI, and it made it look really fake. Ares' armor, the fight scenes with the Amazons doing all these miraculous things. So yeah, I think that's my biggest problem with that movie. But otherwise, it was pretty dang good. I love that movie. It's probably the best DCEU movie there right now. Followed quickly by Batman vs Superman. Okay. All right, now that's all the movies up to Justice League. Now, for those of you who still haven't seen Justice League or despaired from seeing it, there's gonna be spoilers for that right now. Big, huge warning right now. So watch at your own risk. So, Justice League. This is pretty much picking up after Batman versus Superman. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is actually a more of a prequel that kind of still ties in with Batman versus Superman. But so Justice League, essentially, Batman had found out in Batman versus Superman that there was this imminent threat coming, and he had found out that Lex Luthor had found these metahumans, namely the Flash, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Aquaman, and he's keeping tabs on them. And Batman, knowing about this imminent threat coming that he believed to be much worse than Doomsday or Lex Luthor, he decided he needed to get this team together to prepare for this big bad problem coming up. And he's starting to feel remorse for not trusting Superman at the beginning, and he feels responsible for Superman's death, and he feels the world needs Superman more than himself. So he and Wonder Woman go about actually trying to recruit these superheroes, Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman. Flash, he says yes immediately. I mean, he's just like, I need friends. Cyborg, he doesn't want to say yes. He feels alienated from his accident that pretty much ripped up his entire body, and then his father melded him with some foreign alien technology that completely changed him. And Aquaman says no, he doesn't want to have to do anything with the world of men, because he's the king of Atlantis. And then all of a sudden, you get a shot of Themyscira. This is Wonder Woman's hometown and home island, and there's this box that is all of a sudden being like it has all this life to it that's normally dormant, and you find out that many millennia ago that these beings called the New Gods from the planet of Apocalypse came to Earth to try to take over the world and change it into the new Apocalypse. And they were led by this man named Steppenwolf, and he led an army of what was called parademons. And they brought with them these 3 boxes, which, when united, transformed the world into Apocalypse. And the world ganged up, and it was the Lanteans, the Amazons, the heathen race of men, and even Green Lanterns. Hey, yay, Green Lantern, they showed up. Not really. So, and they stopped Steppenwolf from changing the world into Apocalypse. And they separate these 3 boxes, and they one goes to the world of men, which they bury. The Amazons keep one, and the Atlanteans keep one. So Steppenwolf comes and he tries taking the box from the Amazon, and he succeeds, and he kills tons of Amazons with it. And then he goes to Atlantis, steals the one they have, and this spurs Aquaman to actually go and help the Justice League. He joins the Justice League, and they're trying to keep Steppenwolf from getting the one that the men have that was actually the thing that created Cyborg. And so they're trying to keep that, and they decide that after the game, their butts handed to them by Steppenwolf, they needed more strength, so they decided to resurrect Superman. So they resurrect Superman. Superman almost kills Batman, and then Lois Lane shows up and gets him back in his right mind, and eventually Superman goes and helps with the Justice League. And by this time, Steppenwolf has all 3 of these boxes, which are called Mother Boxes. And upon getting all these Mother Boxes, he goes to Russia, of all places, to unite them and make Apocalypse out of the world. And so the Justice League, consisting of Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg, all go and try to prevent this from happening. And you just see this big fight scene between these guys and them, and they eventually they win. So they defeat Steppenwolf. He retreats. They don't kill him, so they retreat, and it doesn't actually tell you what happens with the Mother Box. So that's the movie for you. So weaknesses, again, CGI. If any of you are DCEU executives, please stop with the CGI. It's too much. It's bringing your movies down. I just please get a little bit more practical effects into that. But biggest problem there. Another problem that I found with it is, so for those of you who don't know, Zack Snyder was directing the movie, and he actually had the movie all done, and then his daughter was committed suicide, and he had to step down. So they had to hire another director to finish the editing. So they hired Josh Whedon, who is the guy who directed the first Avengers movie. And he comes in and he does a ton of reshoots. So yeah, they do the reshoots. So you can actually the movie has a kind of a double feel to it. There's parts where it's very serious, and there's other parts where it's too campy. And you can kind of feel that. And it kind of feels like you can definitely tell that both directors had their hands in it. And I feel like there was a problem that kind of detracted from the story. One of my biggest problems with this is they tried changing Batman. I liked how they handled Aquaman and Flash and Wonder Woman. and Superman. They actually brought Superman into being an actual character of hope. But Batman, he's supposed to be this dark, brooding character who is just so paranoid and not funny whatsoever, so serious. Into bringing him in a funny, making him funny, and it detracted from his character a little bit. Otherwise, the movie was actually very good. Had a great potential for a story. Again, because of the two directors, I kind of feel like that story was kind of lost. Just a little bit, not completely. But I felt like it was a better step in the right direction. It was a good step. It wasn't like it it allowed it to open up a little bit to more audience. It wasn't too dark, which is mainly the biggest concerns that most people have with the DCEU. So that is my thoughts. I am looking forward to the next movies. I believe the next one coming out is Aquaman. I'm really excited to see Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I remember watching on Stargate Atlantis. He absolutely loved him. Never watched Game of Thrones, so I don't know if he was how good he was on there. But I know a lot of people know him from Game of Thrones. So, um, so yeah, that's my movie. That's my video about DCEU. Sorry for being so long, guys. Um, I'm not going to do any more of these long ones. Maybe next time I'll break it up into the next video I make is probably going to be about the MCU. Um, I'll probably break it up into phases, talk about each phase one, phase two, phase three. Um, maybe talk about the last few ones individually. Black Panther, I'll definitely make its own video since it'll be coming out pretty soon. Actually, it came out today, so I'll make my own video when I finally go see that for that. So, any requests? What if on things you want me to talk about? Movies, strengths, weaknesses? Go ahead, let me know. Just comment down below. Please subscribe, guys, and just let me know your thoughts. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section. Please do not swear. I do not like swearing. I will just delete your comments if you swear. But if you don't, I will totally, hey, let you know. Thank you for your opinion. But please, yeah, comment. Tell me what other videos you want me to talk about, movies you want me to talk about. I can talk about Batman. I can talk about anime movies like Wall-E or stuff like that. Fernand. If I haven't seen the movie, I'll let you know in the comment that I haven't seen it, but I plan on seeing it sometime. Again, do not comment movies that are rated R or about sex or horror movies. I don't watch those. I don't want to watch those. So I'm not going to watch them. So, yeah, thanks for your guys' time and hope you have a great day.